Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 339 of the podcast. We are broadcasting live and recording on Sunday, August 9th, 2020. I'm David Lotz. Joining me as always is Bobby Jackson.
Hey everybody, happy Sunday. How's it going?
And Michelle Hillard.
Hi everybody, hello.
And Yasha will be here eventually, hopefully. He couldn't join us, at least for the beginning of the show. He might be joining us later. We will hopefully see his face in a little bit. That's all I got. This week, we've got mainly just a lot of stuff to talk about that we've watched lately. An American Pickle, The Rental, Michelle finally watched. Interstellar. I watched it for a second time. I actually only ever saw it one time.
Wow.
So I ended up watching that again. We'll share our thoughts on that. Plenty of other stuff. But how's it going, guys? What's new? How's life?
Oh, yeah, no, just living the dream in a pandemic world.
Yep, that's
doing all right.
It's about the norm.
Same old. Yeah, exactly. It's about the norm. Not too much different.
So, Bobby, you watched. Let's start off. You watched with An American Pickle.
I wanted to see that.
I'm
you want to start there, huh?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I mean, unless you want to start somewhere else, man.
Nah, that's fine. I don't mind starting with that. I didn't have any particular order. But yeah, American Pickle. It's Seth Rogen new movie that I believe it was made and then picked up for distribution by HBO Max. I think it probably had a possibility of going to theaters first, but it all happened pretty quickly around the time that there was the pandemic. So I think maybe even before someone had a chance to even snatch it up and put it to distribution, it was just automatically snatched up by one of the streamers. I don't even know if there was, I don't recall if there was any kind of bidding war for it or anything like that. But for the most part, yeah, it seemed like it was a premiere movie going to HBO Max. And unless you know of any other one, David or Michelle, this is kind of like the first one that I can think of that's like a big kind of picture for the streaming service that's an original film. The only other one I can think of, well, no, I can't think of any other one. But this one is like, for me, I'm trying to think of how Seth Rogen's other films have been for me in his filmography. For the most part, I think I enjoy Seth Rogen films. And at this point, it's almost like he doesn't even really need to make films because he has his hands in so many other projects that he produces that he could probably just live off of the money that he's doing for producing different things. And yet, so he still is acting and does things like this. I guess the last movie I remember seeing him in, can't think of the name of it, but the one with Charlize Theron with them being the she was running for president, and he was like the person she met or she knew way back when or something like that. Forget what that one's called, but that was the last movie I saw him in. And I would say this is, for me, similar to that in that there's a nice warmth to the story that goes beyond just the humor. The humor a lot of times in this one is, I wouldn't say hit or miss, because I think most of it landed just fine. But I think that the way it starts off, and for those who don't know, the premise is that Seth Rogen is playing two parts. He's playing a person named Herschel, I forget the last name, but he is Greenbaum or something like that. But he goes into the past, or he's in the past, and through an accident, he gets basically has the whole frozen in time kind of aspect happen to him, where he goes into the future based on the fact that he kind of got captured in this pickle vat. Consider for a movie, but it's just kind of like, okay, grasp onto that being the catalyst and then just go from there. Because even in the movie, when they explain how the process works, it's just like, just go with this kind of thing. Even in the movie, but I think the the best parts of this movie lie within um, Seth Rogen as his current self, and then the Seth Rogen from the past. And when they are having conversations on screen, that's where the real heart of the movie is. And really, when Seth is playing the past version of the character, or of the older generation character, it's honestly some of the best that I think I've ever seen Seth Rogen, because I forget sometimes as I'm watching it that it's Seth Rogen, because he plays that other character so well. He feels very distinctly different than the current version of Seth Rogen. And I keep saying versions, but totally, completely different people, but they look essentially the same. So that's kind of why I keep saying versions, but no, they're completely different characters. But yeah, and then I think towards the middle, it kind of goes into a place where it gets off the rails a little bit for me, and kind of goes in directions where I'm like, wow, that just kind of, this is all over the place at this point. But it brings it back around. And I would say, in all honesty, this feels like that I can remember maybe one of the first family friendly Seth Rogen films I saw. I don't recall there being much cursing, if any. And there was no like lewdness or anything really in Seth Rogen's normal wheelhouse in terms of some of the movies he's done in the past. But yeah, it just was like a nice, easy breezy kind of film. And I think that it's a solid film for his filmography, and something that people should check out, because it's as I would put it, harmless. It doesn't, it's not going to leave a lasting impression, but it's a solid watch for the runtime that it is. I don't remember how long it is, but it's a solid movie.
All right, that's An American Pickle on HBO Max. Yeah, as you mentioned, I can't think of another original feature length
No.
film over on the service. But yeah, I've been curious about it. With that, I'd like to welcome Yasha Wilson. You arrived a lot sooner than I expected. You were here.
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
I did arrive. I did arrive a lot sooner than I expected as well. As soon as I sent that text message, I was freed up and I was able to jump on the call. So I apologize
Nice.
for being late, everybody, but it's great to see everyone.
No worries. Welcome. Uh,
Uh,
woohoo.
The gang's all here.
With that, Bobby, while you're at it, anything else you wanted to talk about, or what did you want to talk about next, I should say?
Well, I'll talk about something that Yasha might be able to chime in on. I got a chance to watch this Netflix docu series that's pretty short, honestly. I think it was maybe 3 episodes, all about an hour or so long, which is called Fear City, New York versus the Mafia. And it tells the story of the mafia families that were running New York, basically, for the time during the 70s and 80s, and how the FBI was eventually able to bring them down. And it's such a compelling story just because it's dealing with real life. And you can see how this story and how they were taken down plays out in modern pop culture in terms of films and TV shows, where they get influences from, because there's so much going on in this, and the stakes are high. But at the same time, especially when you're watching it, you almost don't get the sense in certain ways of how high the stakes are, because there was a lot of arrogance on the part of the mafia because of how well they were running things and how deeply ingrained in the normal ecosystem of the city, because they had legit businesses, but they were still using those legit businesses in ways that could help benefit them and their drug game, essentially. So it's really kind of like they already knew FBI was on them and tailing them and different things, but they just didn't really, I wouldn't say they didn't care per se, but it was like they just felt untouchable, and that there was never going to be anything to bring them down, because to bring them down would bring down a whole economy because of how much they had their hands in. So it's such an interesting story and a tale, and the way that they talk about these five families. I think there's five families that they talk about in the series. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good, and it gave me a perspective that I never had before, based on the mafia and how well they were seeming to run things for quite some time back in New York City.
And Yasha, you also saw this, right? What were your thoughts on it?
I did. I did. Bobby pretty much laid it out there pretty concisely. There, it really does give you an insight as to how ingrained in society these people really were, and how much they really did control. Mentioning briefly, and I think it was very touching on it just a little bit with the whole Trump being a real estate developer in New York. I mean, they did it, but enough to not make it be slander, or that he was really involved in the payoffs and everything, that the city really was slave to whatever they wanted and however they wanted to go ahead and proceed with things. I took an interest in it because I love that type of storyline and history, and I find it super interesting how sometimes these people can get away with so much. The story alone was just like, yeah, it was very eye-opening to a lot of the pop culture references that we hear nowadays, or we used to hear in a lot of music and people and stories and movies and film, and down to the Sopranos. And I mean, I'm sure if anybody has seen documentaries when it comes to the Sopranos, wise guys have frequently said, yeah, that's pretty much how they did it and how things were. And it kind of really plays true to that nature. And just to hear from past wise guys talking about these stories and talking about these people, and how much the FBI really did work hard. But at the same time, a lot of it was just, I think, blind stinking luck, that they would trip over and all of a sudden they'd be in the path of like, oh wait, what are they talking about right there? And it just so happens that they were able to get a bug at the right time or in the right moment. But I really do believe a lot of it was just luck. Like, they just happened to be in the right place at the right time, or were able to go ahead and bug the right thing at the right moment, or follow the right person and finally cue in on something that might have helped them in creating this case. And if you are a fan of this type of genre, or this type of storytelling, or even just this history, I mean, 1984 is not that long ago. That's that's definitely within my lifetime, that these people were basically ruling and controlling the city of New York, and they really, really did. So I have found it very fascinating. If you like that kind of stuff, then I would definitely put it on for a watch.
Nice. And the title of that again was what? Fear City, New York versus the Mafia. It's over on Netflix.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about documentaries, I'm curious, Yasha, you mentioned that you watched something called Tread, which
I did.
First, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but when I was digging up a poster for this to use here on the show, I looked at the image and I'm like, what is this about? So I did a little Googling, ended up watching like a YouTube video or two, and this is something I'd never heard of. I don't know how much national attention this got back when it happened I think it was the early 2000s. But this is interesting. So, I mean, you can tell the story from here. Tell us about Tread.
Oh, right on. I was actually put onto this by one of my friends. He was telling me about this story, and I was just like, yeah, I'm all in. I'm definitely going to check it out. And I'll read what IMDb has as a definition. Pushed to his breaking point, a master welder in a small town at the foot of the Rocky Mountains quietly fortifies a bulldozer with 30 tons of concrete and steel, and seeks to destroy those he believes have wronged him. This is a true story. There is actual video footages of this tank that this guy built in the middle of Colorado, and literally started driving around this small town, taking buildings out and shooting things. Like, this is not a joke. This is not like, oh, they're elaborating it on any sort of, sense or whatnot. There's actual cassette tapes where this man recorded how pissed off he really was. There's video interviews with all the people that they say that he wronged, or that wronged him. And then there is actual video reenactment, which I found was really interesting. But the actual video footages of watching this tank roll around, and they legit had no way of stopping it. is mind blowing. And we were all adults when this happened. And the reason that there was no national attention or what we didn't hear about it is because this happened on the 4th of June. Ronald Reagan died on the 5th, and that overshadowed everything.
Mm.
Literally no more coverage for this event that basically where this guy decimated this town because Ronald Reagan, the ex-president, passed away. I may have
Yeah.
the dates mixed up, but it was literally back to back. Destruction in a town. The very next day, Ronald Reagan dies. All the media decides to cover that. They left this to go to the wayside. This is true. This is an actual true story. And it is a quick watch. It's maybe an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes, a bunch of interviews. It's just really interesting to hear how this man feels like he was really wronged and really taken advantage of. When by all accounts, he really did succeed in this town. He bought a property for $10,000 and was able to sell it for $400. But it just shows you that when a seed is planted in somebody's head and they just let it grow and fester, and he really felt like he was done wrong, he snapped. He had a great life, in my opinion, from what I interpreted of the show. He had a really nice girlfriend. He was, progressing in that relationship. His business exploits were doing well for the most part, but it just seemed like every single time that he wanted to try and do something, he felt that somebody new in the town that had been there forever was basically stonewalling him. And once he got it in his head that they were doing him wrong, that was it. He legit snapped. And the amount of commitment that he took to basically buy this bulldozer, outfit it with sheets of metal, and then pour concrete in between those sheets of metal. Like, they were firing like elephant guns at this thing, and it was shrugging it off like it was nothing, like wasn't even making a dent. It was insane, to the point where on the back of it, where you would get on the back of a tractor and then climb up, they were like, we couldn't even get up back there because he had greased or put something on the outside of it, so it basically prohibited them from getting on the top. One guy was sitting on the top of it trying to open it, couldn't figure out how to get it. When it was all said and done, I mean, it was interesting. They actually had to hire somebody to come in and like have a cutter basically cut the pieces off to get into the inside of it. But
Wow.
it's a super, super interesting watch. Very, very detailed documentary. I enjoyed it because, well, one, it was true, something I had never heard of before, and kind of sad that this man had, let so much kind of fester in his life and really kind of take over his anger and hate. And he invoked God a lot when it came to like what he was about to do, which bothered me. But sometimes people that aren't mentally well, that's what they do. He kept saying, is like, if God didn't want me to do this, I would be caught, I would be stopped, somebody would find out what I'm doing and building and stuff like that. And this was all on his videotape. Like, not videotape, but his cassette tapes. So this is all recorded. It's a super interesting watch.
Yeah, like I said, excuse me, even just seeing the poster kind of interested me, and then watching the little bit I did on YouTube made me interested in seeing it. I wasn't aware of this documentary on Netflix. It's not that new. It came out, I think, earlier this year, I think back in February on Netflix. So it's been on there for a little bit. But if you're unaware of it, that's Tread over on Netflix, documentary. With that, back to you, Bobby.
Wait, can I add something?
Oh, yeah.
Can I add something else? I'm not sure if I got a chance to talk about this, but did I get a chance to talk about Palm Springs? Did I go over that at all? Because I remember that I watched it, and I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Can I mention that real quick?
Please.
Okay, cool. So Palm Springs is basically Andy Samberg, Kristen Milotti, and J.K. Simmons. And the best way to describe this is basically picture Groundhog Day, but in Palm Springs. And this is a Hulu original film. I found out that this is Hulu's most watched film so far in 2020. So it's very, very getting a lot of praise. And basically this guy is trapped in the same day, and it just happens to be a wedding that he's trapped at and the people that he's around. And it just goes through how do they get out of that scenario. I don't want to give too much away here because there is a lot that comes into the story, and it's very, very interesting. Their interaction with each other, and once they figure out that they're trapped there. It's a fantastic story. It has a really nice twist on it, but it's a really, really kind of cute love story, but not super cutesy, um, and funny in a dark humor sort of way. And if you like Andy Samberg, I would definitely recommend watching it because it really delivers, really really does.
Nice. And you had talked about that before, Bobby, right?
Yeah, I did,
Yeah.
and I'd agree. It's just it was a good watch, and like I said, at the time, anyone who's been using that premise, that Groundhog's Day premise, seems to have a good handle on it and being able to tell it in a way that's different than the last person that told it, and still bringing something fresh to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this stands in line with that as well, because I don't know, we probably have at least 4 or 5 different movies that we can point to at this point that's done that, between, like, what was it, Edge of Tomorrow, and um, this, and then there's Russian Doll on Netflix, and a couple other ones. So yeah, everyone seems to be able to tell it in a way that still seems to be um, entertaining without it feeling like, this is the same premise, and they're not going to be able to do it any differently, or make it any more compelling than the 3 other times or 4 other times I've seen this kind of device being used. But
Right.
everybody seems to be able to make it work for them. So this is another
Hmm.
one that I think people who have Hulu should definitely check out.
Nice. All right, Michelle, you've been wanting to watch The Rental for a while. Bobby, you did watch it this week.
I
Um,
did.
so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. It's kind of been on my radar as well, but how was The Rental?
Yeah, The Rental. It's marks the directorial debut of Dave Franco. He is um, also in the movie is Allison Brie, Dan Stevens. Those are the main people I know, but the main premise of the story is that it's these 2 couples, and they are celebrating a victory, something that happened at work. Dan Stevens and the other character is his younger brother. They're all and The younger brother and his girlfriend, and Dan Stevens and his wife, played by Allison Brie. They decide to go to this rental property and celebrate for the weekend. And the guy that's renting out the property, something seems weird about the guy. And so there's a lot that starts to happen over the course of that weekend that really kind of puts everyone at edge because of what's going on around that property. And I won't say much more than that because it's something that you would want to experience and see for yourself, as opposed to me kind of laying it out there for you. But needless to say, and suffice it to say, I enjoyed it a lot. What I think I enjoyed about it was it takes a let me be careful here. It takes something that you typically see in, I guess, if you wanted to classify this as a thriller or type of a slasher kind of movie, which it's not. It's not like a gory kind of film or anything like that necessarily. That you typically see those movies from a certain point of view, and I think this does a good job of subverting that in a interesting way that you don't see that often these days. And that's what I really appreciated about it. And the other aspect about the film that I will say, with Dave Franco, in terms of his directing for the movie, I didn't notice anything particularly special about it. It didn't stand out in any way visually. It just seemed like a solid effort for his first time directing a movie. He was smart enough to make it something that it was in that horror kind of realm, and so that it's not going to be a big budget kind of movie. It's going to be no special effects. So he did a good job, a serviceable job in directing for his first time for this type of a film, which is something I would feel like it's probably perfect to cut your teeth on if you're wanting to direct for the first time. And yeah, in that respect, I think he did a good job. And the movie itself and the story, I really found to be the big selling point on it for me, and to see how everything unravels. And I really did enjoy this one quite a bit. Yeah, and that's on VOD. You can't find it on a streaming service yet.
Right. Though I noticed I don't think the rental is like kind of the normal like $20 rental, isn't it? It's
No.
not.
Mm-mm.
It's cheaper rental. I say normal,
Yeah,
like
it's
the
like
normal in this
$6.99.
Right.
in this day and age of things that were supposed to go theatrical going straight to VOD. But yeah,
Right.
I thought I saw the same thing, $6.99.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's something that it's only maybe 2 weeks old at this
Mm-hmm.
point, possibly three at most. And so you can still find it if you wanted to go see it at a drive-in, because I know that that's where it made its debut in the drive-ins. And so if you wanted to go on a night out and check this out at a drive-in, I think it would be very suitable for that kind of purpose as well,
Yeah.
based on the type of film that it is. But yeah, I checked it out at home and still enjoyed it quite a bit.
Now
I
you
wanted to
also,
see that.
yeah. Now you also saw something honestly I hadn't heard of yet. She Dies Tomorrow.
Yeah, so the premise of this is interesting because it you know how it kind of has a similar DNA to the movie It Follows. If you remember how with that it was kind of like an STD being passed on, passed person to person, a living entity that would kill you after you had sex. And this isn't that, but if you think about it in the term in the way that something is being passed on, that's kind of what this goes for. In that, imagine if someone was able to put a thought into your head, and then that thought manifests. And in this case, the thought is that you're going to die tomorrow. And if you're able to manifest that thought into your head, will it then come true? And it seeks to answer that question. And if that sounds interesting to you, then I would say that the movie did a really good job in terms of making that the concept of the film, but did a poor job in terms of executing it in the film. For my taste, it's very slow, and it seems as though like there was no there was no immediacy to the film. There was nothing to keep you on edge, ratcheted up. It just seemed like it was just taking its time in a pace that was just not working for me. There was be shots and scenes that lingered longer than a few seconds for no reason. It had no reason to linger on a shot, but yet you're there for like 3 seconds. And 3 seconds doesn't sound like long, but when you're just staring at a table for 3 seconds and there's nothing going on with it, and then it moves to another scene, you're like, why? What was that? What was that? It had nothing to do with anything. So there's a lot of that, and just in general, there's elements in it that work when they really start getting into some of the idea, but I think that they were trying to go for something that was more esoteric in a way. I I'm not as familiar with the work of David Lynch, but it seems like that would be something that he would kind of have his flair for in a film of this nature. But for me, it just did not work. And unfortunately, it just seemed like the concept worked better by that very idea more so than the execution of it. So, yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it for people. If you do want to see it, then just know that going into it, it's pretty slow. And I don't know that the payoff was necessarily worth it to me. But yeah, it's one that just debuted this weekend on VOD as well.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one. She Dies Tomorrow does not get your recommendation. How's it getting it? How's it getting received from most critics? Have you seen or? 'Cause
I have
haven't. I
not,
was kind of
which I'd be
curious.
interested in. I think I've heard a couple critics talk about it. And interesting enough, I think the reason why I checked it out is because one that you're familiar with, Dave, the slash film movie. podcast. They were talking about reviewing it for their next show coming up this week. So I was like, let me check it out, see what it's about. And so I don't know what they thought. And yeah, like I said, I didn't think too highly of it in terms of the execution. There was one person that's from another one that's the Slash Film Daily podcast, Chris Evangelista. He loved it, but he tends to love certain things that his tastes are unique, I would say. But so I didn't really care for it, but I would be curious to see what the Rotten Tomatoes on it is.
I just did a quick look. It's at 83% with 101 reviews.
Not too bad, actually.
See, so most people are liking it.
Yeah. Critics' consensus is formally provocative and emotionally raw. She Dies Tomorrow confirms writer-director Amy Symes as a filmmaker with a unique and timely vision. That's all it says. So, yeah, She Dies Tomorrow.
Unique vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a huge fan of Mandy. Maybe I should see something like this.
I think you should see it because you might love it, honestly. But see, that's the thing. I like Mandy a lot, and it's weird and trippy in ways as well. But this just, to me, just felt like it was too slow moving. But I don't know. I would be curious to see if you had a chance to watch it, what you would think. Because, obviously a lot of critics are really liking it a lot.
Well, to switch things up, and speaking of things that you watched and maybe we should watch, both Michelle and I this week ended up watching Host, which you talked about on the last episode, which is a Shudder exclusive. I guess it was produced by them. I don't know if that was something
it's
that was
an original film
brought to them. Yeah, but you talked about it last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like you liked it quite a bit. We watched it. Michelle, what did you think of Host?
I have to kind of echo what Bobby said. I actually really enjoyed it. I feel like, there's jump scares in this horror film, but they were timed really well, and they weren't all super predictable. It wasn't like constantly going, oh, here comes another one. Oh, here comes another one. This is gonna happen behind this. They got me. There was definitely a few that kind of got me. And I think just that it's very creative the way that they did this horror movie, basically doing it all over Zoom call. And, you have all these characters in different places and they're all going through this experience together. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought they did a great job with it. And it's not like it's a very long watch. It was really quick and pretty to the point, pretty fast, which is also really nice. Like, I felt like it wasn't, I feel like sometimes I see horror movies or scary movies or thrillers, and they'll draw it out for a long time before anything actually happens. And this jumps in pretty quick and fast. I mean, probably 15 minutes in, 16 minutes in or so. Which I liked. It didn't beat around the bush about what this was going to be like. So, I actually really enjoyed it. I was quite entertained.
I watched it too. Overall, I liked it. I thought, I don't know. I guess it was basically what I expected it to be. And I like the runtime. I thought the runtime worked for it being like just under an hour. It's easy to feel like, I guess when you're making something like this, that it needs to maybe be an hour and a half, but this doesn't, and it works this runtime. But I don't know. I guess going into it, maybe I was expecting something a little different from my expectations, but it basically met my expectations. And I mean, it was an enjoyable watch. I didn't think it really did anything new with the kind of found footage, genre. So overall, I thought it was pretty good, but I don't know. I didn't really think I wouldn't call it great by any means, but that's kind of where I am with it. Yeah, now I need to remember, am I going to keep Shudder or get rid of my trial? I think I still have my 7 days now. Yeah. I gotta figure that out.
Like tomorrow.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff on there, though.
There's a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah. Part of me is tempted to just keep it.
Let it go for a month and just see what happens.
For a month. Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of what my initial intention was when I first got it, was just to keep it for a month and see other
Yeah.
stuff. But then there'd be something else that would drop, and I'd be like, oh dang, I want to check this out. So I've talked about at least 2 or 3 different things on Shudder that I've had
No.
a chance to see. So I'm like, okay, I'll cancel it at some point. But right now, I'm still getting some value out of it. So
Yeah.
I'm still
No,
kinda hanging
I've
on to it.
noticed you've been watching some stuff on there, and I'm like, oh, he must be
Yeah,
digging it. He keeps bringing up stuff from Shudder, so
Yeah.
totally.
that's cool.
I mean, even
Yeah.
before the movie, they did a quick little promo of like things on Shutter, and not that I could like sit here and name any of them, but I remember kind of going, "Oh, that looks interesting. Oh, hey, that one looks kind of interesting too." Like I was kind of like, "Oh, maybe we should peruse Shutter,
Right.
just poke around and see what we see."
Right. Well, while we're at it, or go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was just gonna say, and you can watch one of the films that I did suggest on here. One Cut from the Dead, I think it was called. There's a Asian film that's with zombies. I believe that's on there as well.
Oh.
Yes, I do remember you talking about them.
Yep.
But yeah, while we're at it, Michelle and I, last week we also talked about in our top 5 lists, 3 of us ended up having Interstellar on our list. And Michelle, you had still never seen it. When I had been meaning to get you to watch it for a while, it felt like a good opportunity to go, okay, we all just talked about it. I guess we decided to go ahead and watch it. And I realized going into it, I'm like, wait, I own this movie. I have a Blu-ray copy of it.
You talk very highly of it frequently.
Yeah, but it is a long film. And I think when I started to think about it, I realized that's why I'm like, oh, wow, I've only ever seen this, I think, the one time in the movie theater. I don't think I'd ever watched this a second time. So I watched it for a second time. You saw it for a first time. I am, of course, curious to know how your next Christopher Nolan film was. How was Interstellar for you? Would you have put it in your top 5 last week?
Yeah, so that was kind of a question I kind of had posed to myself, kind of watching it, and then even towards the end of the film. And yeah, I'd have to even look at my list right now. And I feel like, yeah, I probably would have put it in there. It would have been somewhere like 5 or 4, I think. I really liked the movie. I will say that. I think it's very Christopher Nolan. Overall, like the premise of the whole thing, I think is really great and fantastic. I think the execution of it overall is really good. I felt like there was some laggy parts of it, which Christopher sometimes I think will start going in too deep in one corner and then he'll slowly pull back out of it. And then that's good. Like he doesn't just get lost into something, but sometimes he does that in his films. And there was times I've kind of like, okay, pull back, Chris. Like let's get back to a focus. Like, and he would do that. So every time I kind of be like, he's kind of going off again, he'd come back onto line. No, I think the way the execution of the ideas it's throwing out about astrophysics and about space and everything therein that's involved with that, it all seemed extremely legitimate on the up and up. And I was like, I mean, I'm no astrophysicist. I have no knowledge of that kind of, everything and the rules and such to space and time. But the way that they were conveying the information, the way it was presented and processed out to the viewer, I think was done really, really well. Yeah, I think visually it's quite stunning. There are some scenes that are they're expansive and you feel very enveloped by the world that he's created in certain scenes. I thought the performances were all really strong. I mean, I really, really enjoy this movie. I'd like to watch it again. I don't know if I'll be watching it a second time relatively soon. It is kind of a longer run movie. It's definitely something that you have to start earlier in your evening if you want to go to bed at a decent time for a night that you're going to your job the next morning. It was definitely like, so it's 6:30. Are we going to pop that bad boy on or not? But it's definitely worth a watch, and I'd like to watch it again just to see if there's more to it than just the main stuff I was getting. Like, what's the next level of the surface to this film? What's more things I'll pick up on and pull in and understand even on a better level the second time. So that's where I'm at.
And yeah, I saw it like I said, for the second time. I mean, I talked about it last week. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'll just say I still thoroughly enjoyed the movie. If anything, I probably liked it a little more the second time around. As for my top 5 list and its placement, I mean, especially after watching it again, you know, it's hard not to say actually it probably should be at like the 2 spot. You know, it's one of those things where I think maybe, and I love that movie Sunshine, and I firmly stand behind it being in my top 5. Maybe I put it a little higher just because I feel like it doesn't get enough recognition, and I feel the need to like constantly go, come on guys, everyone really should watch this. You really should give it a chance. But in the end, is Interstellar or Sunshine a better movie? Interstellar is a better film. I mean, yeah, if anything, just visually, it shows that Christopher Nolan, and I don't know which cinematographer he's been working with through most of his films, but visually he's a mastermind. Just that alone. I mean, just the way he shoots everything, I think, is just incredibly good. But the movie's very good, but I also can still see why, you know, I think it's probably like the last 30 minutes of that film. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but, you know, right before we get to this last part of the film that I'm not going to talk about, I was watching the film going, my God, this is a great, great movie. And then the last 30 minutes happens, and I'm not saying I don't like the way the film ends. I'm actually pretty good with the way the film ends, but it definitely, I feel like it immediately kind of changes your mood about the movie. Like there's something about it that like something about the change in tone of the film, like completely like puts you in a different place in the film. And then I think that's really the deciding factor of where people stand on this. And I think for a lot of people that left them going, what the hell is going on there? And didn't really do it for them.
Right.
But overall, yeah, I still really like Interstellar. So that's my big takeaway.
And then Bobby's going to revisit it too, I think.
Yeah, I thought we kind of were all going to do that around the same time. I didn't know you guys were going to watch it this weekend, so I probably would have watched it as well.
Well, I didn't know that David was going to talk about it tonight. I knew you weren't watching it until like next week, but
yeah,
we watched it this week. I was going to talk about it tonight. My bad.
Was it on any of the platforms?
I don't know. I didn't look because I owned it and had a digital copy of it as well, so we just watched it that way.
I'm looking there.
You know, I'm curious because as you mentioned it, I started trying to look on the IMDb to see if I could find who the cinematographer was, but I don't know exactly where that would be on the IMDb. I don't see it. It doesn't just kind of...
It's always down there, unfortunately. Poor cinematographers never get all the love that they think they actually deserve. They do a ridiculously hard job, and they don't get anywhere near the love or attention credit that I think cinematographers actually deserve in movies.
Yeah, so now I'm going to look too because I'm curious. Cinematography by Hoyt van Hoytema.
Okay.
If I'm saying this name correctly. Hoyt, Hoyte. And it does show that he's the cinematographer when I quickly go to his IMDb on Dunkirk, Ad Astra as well.
Okay.
Trying to see any other...
Tenet.
Yep, Tenet.
Did you say Tenet? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tenet's on there as well, yeah.
Well, I have to say, I think for me, for Chris Nolan films, it's not like it's low on the list of Chris Nolan films, but it's definitely not high on my list for Chris Nolan films, I'll put it that way. So I'm not saying... It's kind of a middle-of-the-road Chris Nolan for me. I'll put it that way. That's probably the best way I could put it. Like, I don't dislike it or anything. It's just that, I don't know. For me, I'm kind of like, it's good. I feel like...
I mean, you said you would put it on your top 5 for last week's list. So I would
yeah,
imagine
no, for sure. I do enjoy it a lot. Like, I'm very happy with the film. But if I look at, like, Chris Nolan films and I, like, were to think about listing them out, yeah, I'd be around, like, 5 or 6. It'd be down a little bit. Like, it wouldn't be in the top 3. One
thing I noticed, since I had only ever seen it in the theater, and maybe for those who don't remember, this movie had similar kind of reaction to its mix, just like similar to Dark Knight Rises, where there was complaints that some of the dialogue was not understandable. And I remember that in the movie theater. I can remember specifically 2 scenes anyway where I had a problem. One of them being a really key scene where the dialogue kind of really mattered. and I remember going, I feel like I really should be able to understand what this guy's saying right now, and I couldn't. Watching it at home, I will say the first scene that wasn't as important, I had no problem hearing the dialogues. I don't know if they changed the mix for
Maybe
the
they
home video
did.
release. Now the other scene, which it was still pretty difficult to understand. I don't think it's watching it again. I don't think it's so much a matter of the mix as it is kind of the performance, is what I'll say. But yeah, anyway, it does seem like maybe the mix was kind of changed maybe for home video, because I just didn't notice the problems like I did in the movie theater. But that's kind of a side note.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I was trying to look real quick to see if it was available on anything, and I don't see it on any streaming service, but I do see it on, if anyone has YouTube TV, it seems to be available on there for VOD. I just tried it real quick and clicked on it, and it was going to start. So, yeah, it
Nice.
is there.
It's I was looking as well. I found it on Hulu. You can watch it on Hulu on demand for VX. So you'll probably have to watch commercials with it. If I remember correctly, it didn't have too many racy moments in the film, so I'm sure it won't be really edited. But you'll still have to watch the commercials if you wanted to watch it on Hulu VX.
Oh, that would be horrible. To watch that
FX,
film.
excuse me, FX.
Oh, okay, that would be
Hulu on
horrible
FX.
to,
Okay.
to watch that way. My God, with commercials.
Commercials, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be that much
Like
longer.
that would be not even
Yeah,
just length.
exactly.
I just feel like you'd really chop up the film. Like that's
Yeah.
a film that
That too.
no. I mean, like there's some movies that like I see on TV. Sometimes I'll be scrolling and I'm like, I hate that this movie's on television. This movie, there's some movies that kind of can get away with things with commercial breaks and stuff. Obviously, we've been doing it since the '80s, but there's other films like whenever I see them on TV, I'm like, I can't watch this film with commercials. Like, there's no way. Like, it just ruins the film. Like, it just takes you out of a moment. It takes you out of a feeling, a sense that you have. And for this film, no
Yeah.
way. No.
Like
no,
there
no,
was
no.
one, we made one quick pause, I think, for like a quick bathroom break or something. Otherwise, it was like, I could tell even you, Michelle, were like, I don't want to have to stop the movie. I want to keep going, keep watching this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you there. With that, Bobby, you watched a few other things. So I don't know if you just want to touch on some of
Bobby.
that stuff or cover all that stuff.
Yeah,
Let us know.
of
What
course.
else did you
Absolutely.
watch?
I got a chance last week. Yasha talked about Umbrella Academy, so I finally got a chance to watch that this week. I did not finish it. I'm 4 episodes in, and what I will say is I can understand where Yasha was coming from as far as the character developments and where it left off last season and where it's picking up this season, as well as the whole plot, which is the world's ending and it seems to be ending again, and it's very repetitive. But I will say I am enjoying it. I think what I'm enjoying about it is that even though there is that in terms of what Yasha mentioned, the way they reset the characters is in an interesting way, and where they pick up with those characters and having to reunite those characters. I thought, at least so far into the 4 episodes, has been really, really interesting, especially when you consider they're back in the 60s and one of the main characters is an African American woman, and it puts that situation right up front and dealing with those race issues back then from a character who was born well into the late past of the 21st century, I would imagine, her character. And so you would think that there's a lot to be mined there for the idea of this history and what's happened, especially when there's another catalyst of something that happened around that time, that it's the idea of shouldn't we stop this other thing that's a big important part of history. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely into it, and some things have happened within this last episode that I saw that presents another little wrinkle that I thought I could tell, at least not specifically where it was going, but you knew that there was going to be something with this character because uh, she seemed to be really connected to another character that's part of this Umbrella Academy. So I was like, okay, there has to be something there because they keep showing her with this other character a lot, and then that kind of gets played out a little bit in terms of what's going on with her. And I haven't seen further beyond that, but I am absolutely intrigued and into the second season and really ready to see how it all kind of connects and goes forward and where they leave it off at, to see where they would go with the third season, because I know they can't, well, I was going to say, I know they can't just repeat that same concept again of the world ending, but I don't know. Who's to say? Maybe they can't seem to get it to stick to where they save the world. So maybe that is the whole uh, conceit of the series, is continuously trying to stop the end of the world. But I don't know that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing off the season, and hopefully I'll be able to report back on that by next week, because I think there's 12 or 13 episodes, so it's not as easy to fly through it for me when it's like that. But I will try and finish it by next time we record, so I can have a full report on that.
Quite a goal you have there.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like,
Yeah.
they're long episodes, so it's like if you said you only saw
No.
4, you still have a ways to go for sure. You got a
Mhm,
good amount to
mhm.
do, plus all the other
Definitely.
stuff you're gonna watch.
Well, I don't know how much else is there to watch. I seem to have watched a lot of it
Well,
this
there's
week. I don't know.
there's that 3.5 hour Nolan movie you gotta watch.
Yeah. Okay, my movie stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can fit some of that stuff in during the week, so
Yeah.
it's not like I have to save it for the weekend. But I think I'll
Right.
have enough time. It's trying to finish this. Honestly, will be the biggest task.
Right.
What's next?
Well, I wanted to see
I
if Yasha had a chance to
Okay.
finish it, because
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to weigh in on. Is I actually did get a chance to finish it. I stuck with it, and I finished the Umbrella Academy, and it got exponentially better than how
Oh,
it first started.
good to hear.
I did like how it finished, to the point where I will definitely watch the third season. I am interested to see where it goes. I stand by what I was complaining about when we first started watching it. When I first started watching it, nothing. It was the same story that they were just regurgitating and putting on top of us, and I didn't like how it started. Probably for the first 4 or 5 episodes, I felt that it was the same story that we were watching the first time. No real character development aside from you pointing out some of the stuff, like putting the black woman back in the '60s and some of the events and stuff that they had to deal with and transpire and figure out how they're going to address some of these situations back then. But I didn't feel like the character development was very strong till about maybe towards the last 2 or 3 episodes in the show, when it really started to make strides. And I felt like it was a very long, drawn out way to push us into next season. And I'm super interested to see how it goes and where they go with it for next season. So if hopefully it gets renewed for another season. But I definitely finished it, and I did like it. Probably on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 6.5, maybe 7. So strong enough to watch and strong enough to refer. But the first season by far is the stronger season, in my opinion. Second season starts off very weak, and I'm hopeful. Hopefully we get a third, because I'm definitely interested to see where this goes and what happens. And I'm not going to give any spoilers if you haven't finished it.
cool.
All right. That's the Umbrella Academy season 2. Bobby, what else you got?
So, yeah, last week I talked about how I wanted to continue to watch some things that I haven't seen, and I believe mentioned it on the show as opposed to off air, that my task for this week was going to be to watch Die Hard with a Vengeance, because I had not seen that. And I mean, I think the reason why I didn't watch it back in the day is I feel like I heard bad things about it. And it's quite possible. I don't recall at this point how reaction was to it specifically at the time, but I feel like it was not received that well. And I think maybe if that was the case and that was what put me off, it may have been a matter of at that time coming off the first two movies, and then doing this, either maybe people felt it was more of the same, or it just didn't feel specifically like Die Hard because, you know, um, the first movie is, as they've sort of coined that phrasing for movies, it was Die Hard in a building. And then the second one is Die Hard in an airport. And then this third one is kind of like Die Hard open world because you can, they're like, it's not contained to one place. So maybe that was something that people didn't necessarily like in the initial time that it came out. But me watching it, I liked it quite a bit. Yeah, for me it really felt like Die Hard because well, one, Bruce Willis still has his hair, and so it's like he still feels like John McClane, and he still acts like John McClane because he's still kind of cracking jokes and being silly, but still has that, maintains that figure that he has in that time. And so he really felt like the character that I remembered. And the movie, it I mean, it really starts and kicks in within the like first 5 6 minutes of the movie, if not sooner. And it just starts going from there. It doesn't like, slow down really. So but I thought that was a positive of it. And uh the whole conceit of it, it's good that the movie's as old as it is because it's not like I'm spoiling anything for anybody. But the idea that this Hans Gruber's brother is the villain for this movie, I thought worked. But in a way that was cool was that it wasn't just on some revenge type thing. It was actually sort of a front to use to keep him busy to be able to do other things while he was trying to go for that gold. So I thought that was really good as well. And just the way he was one step ahead in terms of doing everything and laying everything out and had them running all over the place for no reason. And yeah, man, I really enjoyed it a lot. It just felt like it it felt good to see a movie. I keep wanting to say it feels like an old like 80s 90s movie, but it actually is an old movie of that time. So it's a product of its time, but it felt good seeing that today because there's not many movies that are like that and feel like that. So I had a really good time. I had a blast watching it, really. I mean, I'm glad that it's weird because it sounds weird to say this, but I'm glad I waited so long to see it because there's not many movies like that. And so to have seen it now, it felt good seeing it now because I could appreciate it more because there isn't that kind of feel. And seeing Bruce Willis in his prime John McClane days felt good because anything after that, he does feel different to me. He doesn't quite feel like the John McClane in the first three movies. So seeing this really felt like I'm seeing him still back in those good old days. And I enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad I finally got a chance to see it.
Nice.
Well, he probably still was excited about playing these roles and was still interested and still happy to do it, and wasn't viciously bitter about his own success for whatever the fuck reason. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, when you watch that movie, it's just like, I mean, you really do feel the magic of Die Hard. Like, I always felt like I was like, the first one's the best. The third one is right behind it, and I actually like the one with Justin Long in it too. I just watched that recently again too. Live Free or Die Hard, I think is what it was.
Yeah,
it was the fourth one. I mean, while it was over the top and it was an extreme, but it was like I still found that one to be a lot of fun. And
the fourth one does over the top well. It kind of owns it.
Yes,
and I like the fourth one as well. I'm with you.
Yeah, the fourth one as well. The second one was okay. It was what it was. I felt like they were just like, oh, we got to capitalize on this, so let's just throw this out there.
Right.
But the third one with Samuel Jackson adding another element, adding another character and another personality that he can bounce his mind off of and deal with and whatnot, I thought that was fantastic. And I'm not even going to mention the one with his son because that was just a fucking travesty. I almost walked out of the theater when I was watching that one.
I haven't even seen that one.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. Maybe I need to watch Die Hard 3 again because listening to you guys talk about it, I will say I don't have fond memories of that movie. Like, I don't remember particularly liking it, but it's been so long that because I think maybe I saw it the one time and that was it because I didn't care for the movie. Like, I feel like if I watched it now, it'd be almost like watching it for the first time. So maybe I need to revisit it. I can kind of
Yeah,
see what you're
rewatch it,
saying.
man.
I can see what you're saying, Bobby, in terms of you being glad that you waited to watch it because it's like, yeah, it would be cool right now to be able to go back and find like a Schwarzenegger film that I haven't seen, but I've seen them all, so I can't do that.
Right.
Like, since you didn't get to see
It'd
it,
be
it's
like you watching True Lies for the first time
right,
now.
right,
Not having seen it back when it came out. It'd be like a
exactly.
hidden gem for you kind of thing. Yeah.
No, I'd be
Talk about
curious.
doing over the top well.
Right.
Yeah.
Doing over the top well.
It's not like you can go back in time and watch Die Hard back when it came out, but yeah,
Right.
it'd be fascinating if there was a way to see like what you would think with that experience
Back then.
versus this experience. It seems like this experience was a lot, mostly like a nostalgia kind of experience for you.
I would say so.
I don't think I've ever even seen the third one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Really?
I don't think I have.
Could be.
So I might have the same experience Bobby has and be like, man, where's this bad boy been?
Right.
It is a fun movie. I might not. Now I gotta go watch it.
There was only
have to
one
do
thing
that.
that I would complain about in that film. Well, maybe two. But one of it is a character decision in terms of Samuel Jackson's character. But aside from that, again, I guess that's not really spoiling anything, but just how much how much race plays a role into it a lot in it. And I thought it was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of musical piece that was being played when there's the them breaking into the reserve, and I can't remember the name of the song, but it's an old song that everyone knows, kind of one of those Civil War type songs. I think it's the one that's
Oh, like 1812.
The Saints Are Coming In?
Oh,
I think it's that.
Saints Go Marching In.
I think it is that, but it played for so long, and then it bring it back again later in the film. It's like, that seems like
Ugh.
why?
Right.
I don't even really understand why that piece of music was chosen in general, but yeah, they went back to it, and I was like, they seem to be dipping into this one for quite some time, and I don't know, I didn't feel it. I thought it was nice for a little bit, but then I was like, wow, this is really stretching on for a little bit. But aside from those little things, yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool.
I think the song is When Johnny Comes Marching Home.
I was going to say, it's not marching
Yes.
in, it's, marching home.
Loosely based on Johann Brahms' Symphony No. 1's first movement.
Yeah,
There it
there
is.
you go.
And anything
Yeah,
else?
it's on the tip of all of our tongues.
We all know.
right. Yeah, so there's this other movie that's out on Amazon Prime, available if you have that, called The Vast of Night. And Michelle, have you heard of this one?
I have heard of this one.
We actually talked about it here on the podcast.
You did?
Yeah.
What? I don't remember you guys talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this one.
I'll
So
have to
please
go
go
back
on.
and I'll have to go back and
It's like a month
see
ago or
what you
so,
guys
right?
thought about it, because honestly, I don't
2 months?
recall. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying you didn't.
Go ahead.
But I just don't recall it. Yeah. So the basic premise is that there's this young high school girl who works a switchboard operating system, and a younger guy, an older guy, I think, that works as a DJ at a radio station. And one night they hear, I guess I do kind of remember it. As I'm saying it, for some reason I kind of remember
Now it's
David saying
clicking.
something about it.
It's all
A little
making
bit.
sense.
Yeah, that they hear like this signal that comes across, and that they are kind of like intrigued by, and it really starts to get their investigative juices flowing, I guess. And so they kind of pair up and figure out where this signal is coming from, and what's the origin of it. And with the process, they're talking to other people who maybe have experienced this sound as well, and it unfolds in an interesting way. I liked it. I'll say that. But I felt like the first, I don't know, 20 minutes, there's not much going on. It felt very, I don't know how to describe it in the first 20 minutes or so, but it's, it's partly set up, but the way it's done, I did kind of find a little creative because of the way the camera moves throughout all of that, and the way that the main male character has such a sort of a dynamic way of speaking that's kind of like, I don't know, he's clever, but he speaks in a way that you'd almost have to, it's almost it's almost a little Aaron Sorkin-y in a way that he talks, because he's talking, I wouldn't say necessarily fast, but he's talking in such a way that I was like, hey, like, do people really talk like this? Because he's very quick on the uptake in terms of how he's talking, but and it's so many moving parts in that first 20 minutes. But I was like, well, where's this going? Where are we headed? And then once you hear that signal, it all kind of clicks in. And then, of course, my favorite type of genre is always something that feels sort of Twilight Zone-y, and this has that feel. And so I think that's what made me really enjoy it once it gets into that realm, and then it starts to tell that story, and you start going along with these characters as they're trying to piece it all together, and you kind of get taken along for that ride. And I was all in, and the way it ends, I thought was perfect for that type of that story. So that's all I'll say. But yeah, I did like it. So now I'm kind of curious, although I can now remember you guys talking about it, I can't remember what you thought about it.
I mean, I'll say really quick, I liked it. It sounds like probably about as much as you did. I enjoyed it. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't think it was amazing.
Right.
Maybe there was an aspect at the very end of the film I think the film could have done without. But other than that, I really liked the movie. And the opening, I get what you're saying, though. It was interesting, and I don't know if it was done for real. I was trying to just Google it, but I mean, if I had remembered correctly, the beginning of the film seems to feature a really long single take.
Yeah.
And
That's
I mean,
why I was saying it was interesting the way it was shot.
looking at it now, I mean, it looks like it was like a 4-minute, 15-second take. And I mean, I'm not reading this article right now as we're on air, but it seems like they shot it for real, but maybe there was some trickery about the
Some
take. I don't
camera
know.
trickery.
Yeah, but overall, I liked it, Michelle.
Yeah, I remember enjoying it. I remember kind of having some issues with the ending, but overall really liking it. And yeah, the beginning of the movie, I think is really set up. It's really trying to get you emotionally invested into the era that it's taking place in, but also just for you to understand the small town aspect that they're in. Like, you really need to understand, like, they're really out there. They're really in a very tiny little town. Things are spread apart, yet still close to each other. Like, it's a very small knit community, and I think it's really trying to capture that and get you to go, okay, I got it. Like, this all makes sense. Like, that's why the feel, and I think that it's really trying to capture a feeling, so that as the movie progresses, you understand so many more of the motives to the main characters and what they do and why they do it and how they do things. So. But yeah, no, I do remember enjoying it. It was very, like, it felt like an art school film kind of a film. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I like that. Like, it was nice. It reminded me, like, of a film that I would have seen in college. People would have been like, hey, the art school, like in the next city over or whatever. Like, they're doing a night. There's gonna be 3 movies. We're gonna sit and just watch the 3 movies. And it feels like that's one of the movies I would have seen, like, doing that kind of thing.
And I know that this movie initially got a drive-in theater release as well,
That would have been sweet.
which
okay.
wasn't planned until
Yeah.
COVID happened. And though it seems like this movie is almost perfectly suited for that kind of
Yeah,
experience.
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The Vast of Night on
Vast of
Amazon
Night.
Prime. And you had one last thing, right, Bobby?
Yeah, actually, there was two other things, or
Okay.
one last thing, and then one more thing. And I'll say real quickly about this other thing is I had a chance to check out Black is King, the Beyonce movie thing
Mm.
ish on Disney Plus,
Oh, I am
and
curious to
I
hear
think
about this.
so. I think I may have said before that I'm not the biggest Beyonce fan. I don't dislike her. I just have never really gravitated to her music. I liked her and her stuff when she was in Destiny's Child, but as a solo artist, I've never really had a major connection to her and her stuff. But
Hmm.
this project that she did that I think was done around the same time that The Lion King was done. And what it does is it kind of takes snippets of dialogue from The Lion King and places it around sort of a visual telling of that story in a not a straightforward way, but in a way that is kind of based around people maybe in Africa, and telling it in a way that would be like their story, their culture, and also framed around Beyonce's music as well. And she did direct it, and there's a co-director as well. And I will say that visually it looks really good. There's lots of colors, lots of different dances, and representing a lot of different type of people from this African culture. And I think that gets expressed really well. But I think that also along those lines, um, you may need to be a Beyonce fan to a certain degree to enjoy the other aspects of it, which might be the music and some of the other things that she represents. And while I didn't take anything negative to that, it didn't move me in that way. The visuals, I think, did more for me than her addition of her music to it. It wasn't distracting in any sort of way, and it wasn't a negative in any sort of way. It just didn't uh, tie together in with the other stuff going on visually for me as just the visuals did. So if it was just a story being told in that kind of way with maybe just some background music as opposed to her actual music, maybe it would have worked more fully for me. But yeah, I guess it's worth the shot in terms of watching it if you have Disney Plus, and if you're a Beyonce fan, I imagine you'd probably love it a lot. I came away thinking, yeah, okay, that was interesting. I didn't have any negative connotation towards it or anything, but I don't think it pulled me in the maybe the way that someone else might get pulled in if they're a fan of Beyonce. And going to that last thing that I did say I had a chance to watch was this documentary on Netflix called The Speed Cubers. And
Hmm.
I don't know, have you guys had any relation with the, because I know we're all around that same age and have that same point of reference. And were you guys ever enthralled by the Rubik's Cube? I'm
I
curious
was.
because I know I had my time with it, and I will honestly admit and say I never figured out a Rubik's cube. I was never able to get it all sides matching. I maybe have gotten two sides matching out of
Yeah.
all the sides. So I can say definitively that I suck at Rubik's cube. But I don't know. Have you guys ever had that experience and solved it?
No,
Even?
I'm with you. I don't think I've ever solved one.
No, I never
Yeah.
solved it. I think I'm with you, Bobby. Like, I think I remember solving the yellow and either the green or the blue side and getting two
Okay.
sides at one time.
Right.
And that was
Yeah.
it. Like, and that was like, I remember it was such a success because it was always like you get most of the side and then you'd always have one effing square that would take you another 4 weeks. And you're like, mother of God, just
Right.
let me. And I remember it's like, yeah, I remember getting the two sides and being like, I can't, I'm done. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
I was enthralled with it, and Bobby, I will actually attest. I watched the Speed Cubers as well. I forgot to mention
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
that. That was another documentary I watched.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah,
Never been able to
the
solve one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Never been able to solve one.
yeah, it's incredibly hard, and I didn't know this whole thing existed. So what the Speed Cubers is it's telling this story about this younger guy. His name is Max, and he's autistic. But early on in his childhood development, his mom tried to get him interested in certain things and different activities. And one day she had a Rubik's cube, and she brought it home and watched YouTube videos on how to solve it and walked him through it. And then he picked it up one day, and then that became his thing. He was able to start to express himself through being able to solve Rubik's cubes and go into different competitions. And there's this whole big competition that there is for Rubik's cube, and it's not just the I think it's called the 3x3. That's the main one. That's like the one that everybody wants to win. But I'm sure you all have maybe seen that there's more than the 3x3 in
Mm-hmm.
terms of a Rubik's cube. There's other ones, and those are nice to win. But the one that everybody wants to win is the 3x3. So he goes into these competitions, and he has this other guy who's been doing this for a little while, who's older than him, and his name is Felix. And he has been the world champion and has all these records that he set. And it really becomes about their friendship, and that you would think that one guy going after another's records and trying to beat this guy, that there'd be this intense rivalry, but it's not. It's this real kind of friendship that they formed through this. And you see Max's journey as he's trying to get better and better, and getting these records, and there it builds up to this world championship that in past, the Felix guy, he had been winning prior, and now at this point Max is at a level where he's really good, and so it's like, okay, who's going to win this thing? And I think it was a really heartwarming story, and sheds a light on the idea of that with the autism, there's this level of understanding and patience that comes along with having a kid like that, because you see the parents and they're talking about having this kid, and there's not necessarily a rule book on how to deal with a child in general per se, but definitely not one if your kid turns out to be autistic. And so how's that for a parent? What happens to them and their thoughts in terms of how do you go about trying to raise this child that you don't know how to connect with them in that way? And it tells this whole sort of beautiful, kind of heartwarming story that I really found to be charming and nice to see. And not the typical kind of at your throat kind of competition. And it was just such a cool thing, and the speed at which these guys and others do these Rubik cube is amazing. And it comes down to these algorithms, and knowing the algorithms and recognizing patterns, and there being like 300 different algorithms or more to be able to solve these cubes. And it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I really enjoyed the documentary on it. So Yasha, what'd you think?
I mean, hell, Bobby, what can I add really to that? I mean, like, there was so much right there. Yeah, it was a fantastic show. It's not even long. It's like 45
No.
minutes, I think. Yeah, maybe 40 minutes. I don't know, but it, like, when it was over, I thought there was another episode because it was so quick. It was so quick to watch, but it was very heartwarming. It was very sweet. It was interesting. And I mean, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's just mind blowingly fascinating to watch some of these people just be able to do this, and not just do it, but with one, but deal with like 8 colors on, or 8 squares on each side. And they're doing that, the 8x8s, I guess, or whatever, or to warm up their hands by doing 2 puzzles at once. Like it was
That's
brilliant,
crazy.
brilliant.
Yeah, it really is.
Very interesting to watch that go down. Like it was just a really, really good show.
Nice.
Nice. And that's the Speed Cubers over on Netflix.
Man, we all watched some content this week.
We watched some stuff this week.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that does it. Is there anything else anyone forgot that they watched?
I don't know, man.
Nothing else? No. So we didn't do a top 5 this week. We will do one next episode. I know it's my turn to come up with a list. And I have. So, I mean, since we didn't do one this week, I'll go ahead and mention it. I decided we should list our top 5 sequels that are better than the original.
I mean, there's already 2 that are going to be on there that better be on there for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like where you rank them.
Right.
But
So did I pick too easy of a list? Is that what you're telling me?
Easily two right away. Like not so much as easy, but easy in the sense of like maybe the content, but not necessarily the selection. Like because it's not that like this is a huge category that you can pull from. You know, like some of the other stuff we've had, like top 5 all overall comic book movies, like that spans decades. You know, like not just the MCU, but that spans decades. But this is like a very finite selection of films. So it's just a matter of where we're going to put The Dark Knight and Godfather 2. Like, let's just say it, okay? Where are you going to put those on the list? Because, like, let's be real, those have to be on the list at some point or somewhere. We can debate that one.
This is what will make the list interesting, Yasha, is that you started this off by saying, we all know there's 2 movies that we're all going to have a list. Those 2 movies, not the 2 I thought you were going to say.
That's what I was just thinking. Those are not the 2 films I was thinking at all.
Yeah. As soon as I said that, I thought that you guys might. I thought that might be it. So, like, I'm interested to know what the 2 that you thought I was going to say.
Like, those aren't even. Yeah, I didn't even think of those 2.
There seems to be, because when you said it, my mind went to the immediate 2 that I thought, and that's almost considered universally as the 2 that are better than the originals.
I think that's where mine are.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah.
And Bobby, what you're saying, I have to imagine I know one of them absolutely for sure. But the other one, I'm like, I'm wondering if I think I know what other one he's thinking, but I don't know that for sure.
Oh, I can think of like a couple of others right off the top of my head. But those are the first 2 movies that popped into my head, so I'm not going to give it away anymore on my list.
All right. Well, we know 2 out of your 5.
Yeah.
Somewhere on there. Somewhere.
Right.
All right. Well, with that, we are going to wrap things up. As always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening and watching. If you are watching us here on YouTube, you can, comment down below. We also invite you to like and subscribe by hitting the thumbs up and subscribe buttons down below, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified when we post any videos or go live again in the future. You can also email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. We are on Instagram and Twitter at @flicker_effect. Reach out to us, talk to us, let us know what you think of the show, write your questions and comments. We might read them here on the air. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for watching and listening.